What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here at the Desai Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, Norman Desai, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Desai Guys, Tad Desai. And Tad, we finally have had some regular season football. We are recording on a Saturday here, so we just had our Thursday night game, the kickoff of the NFL season for 2023. We had the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions, and we had an upset. That was a bit exciting. I expected Kansas City, even with their losses of Travis Kelce and Chris Jones not reporting yet because he wants his new deal, Kansas City would still find a way to win. But no, credit Detroit. They were able to sort of gut it out. They played strong defense. They ran the ball really well. Jared Goff played mistake-free football. And just that led to the 21-20 final score. And Detroit being undefeated and Kansas City being winless.
Can we just talk about for a second? Because we need to bring this up. When did Tony Soprano become a sports agent?
No idea.
Because that Chris Jones shot in the box was the best thing to come out of that entire game. That was amazing. With his agents with the button down shirts, button down the top of their chest.
Yeah,
that was
seriously
fantastic. What a power play by Chris Jones. But no, I actually love that. And another thing is I almost took the Lions +4. I almost did it and I should have. And I'm kicking myself now, but it was a great game. In terms of speaking of fantasy wise, David Montgomery looking a little bit more relevant than I've been giving him credit for all offseason. I've been saying that dude's going to be fantasy relevant because Jamar Gibbs is Jamar. I don't know.
Jameer.
God damn it. But anyway, the fantasy implications from that game are fascinating, especially because now I am way higher on Travis Kelce than I was before. So fantasy football season's back. Football season's back. I'm loving this, baby.
Yeah, David Montgomery got a healthy amount of carries for sure. They limited Jameer Gibbs, but Dan Campbell said that was according to game plan. So all of you fantasy managers that roster Jameer Gibbs, you don't have anything to worry about. He wanted to sort of ease him into the season.
When I offer you a trade for Jameer Gibbs, you will give him to me.
So, yeah, just ease your expectations with him. Dan Campbell said he has a lot more planned for him. He didn't want to just throw him to the Wolves in game one. So, yeah, we expect to see aboard Jameer Gibbs. But, yeah, I think just like Tad said, Dan Montgomery is still very much fantasy relevant. I think we saw that. He was very much used in the running game for sure. And yeah, Jared Goff, like I said, he looked very competent behind center. He didn't throw for a lot of touchdowns, only threw for one, but also this is the first week. So I think give it a little bit of time, but just, yeah, he was finding the open receivers. He looked very comfortable in the pocket. His line was giving him great protection as well. So yeah, Jared Goff could be a sneaky guy to add in case he went undrafted in your league. On the other side, I think, Tad, we've talked about this, Kadarius Toney, we are not fans of his, and clearly it showed. He had a chance to step up, and he didn't.
Who is a rookie that I've been talking up all offseason that caught his first NFL touchdown on Thursday night? Rashee Rice. I'm telling you, look out for Rashee Rice.
It's true. He can emerge. Hopefully with Toney having the game that he had, we may see some more Justin Ross now. Justin Watson got involved for sure. Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Who is the white guy? Well. Who is 84?
Justin Watson.
I'm going to be completely honest with our listeners and viewers. I'd never heard of him before. That might be a name to watch out for because he seems to be like their deep target this year.
Well, he came over from Tampa Bay, so he was actually playing with Tom Brady during that Super Bowl year. So, or it might have been the year before too. But yeah, so Justin Watson came over from Tampa Bay, so now he's a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. So yeah, he could be a name to look out for. But yeah, that offense struggled without Travis Kelce. So that's something to be interesting to watch, to see. Hopefully, it'll only keep him out for 1 week for all you Travis Kelce managers out there. But just, yeah, if it lingers on a little bit longer, that Kansas City offense may not be as strong in fantasy as we may think it is based on what we saw against Detroit. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I mean, Tad, just talking about real action, talking about fantasy football. I mean, it's just
so
it
good.
is
It's so good.
fantastic. It's just I love it.
We're
So
back in
much.
it, buddy. We're back in it.
Exactly. We're 100% back in it. So we've talked about this on our podcast before. We'll be giving you all of our waiver wire picks and our start sit picks and our bets and DFS. Actually, we have a DFS article that is up on the LAFB Network website for week 1. So yeah, make sure you check that out. But 100%, we're going to be jumping right back into routine starting next week after the week 1 slate of games. So yeah, make sure you're tuning in to all of our social media handles. Make sure you're tuning into the LAFB Network website.
Do you always get the timing down? My Lord.
I make it work.
Good God.
Subscribe to our podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because we got you covered all season long with all of your fantasy needs for sure. So make sure you're doing that. So since we're not going to be talking about start sit today, we're not going to be talking about DFS today. We're going to be talking more about something that happened over the Labor Day weekend, Tad. This was actually right before the Thursday night action. So this happened on Sunday of Labor Day weekend. So that was September 3rd, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. These days start blending together once you get a month into the school year.
I believe that was September 3rd. I'm double checking that right now. Yes, so September 3rd.
All I know is if I get through a day with the students without quitting, it was a successful day.
Yeah, so that was a long weekend. We did it on Sunday evening. It was our 10-person LAFB Network fantasy football draft. So, I mean, we have our returning champion, Alfred Rowe, who was talking a lot of talk all offseason long. Tad has a personal vendetta against him.
I am so ready.
To make sure that Alfred does not repeat as champion. We'll see how this all season plays out. But I think we figured that with the draft that just happened, with us being the fantasy guys here at LAFB Network, would that be fun to sort of dive into our draft? Because I'll be honest with you, Tad, during that draft, I was at a buddy of mine, his birthday party. Shout out to Victor Campa. I was at his birthday party, so I was having amazing Mexican food, and I was drafting at the same time. Good. And so,
any elote? Any elote?
There was elote for sure.
Love a good elote.
Elote and carne asada and tortillas and ribs and just like you name it, it was there. Fresh guacamole was fantastic.
Well, I'm allergic to avocado,
so just unfortunately, I wasn't able to be part of our video chat that we had.
I was there.
So, I mean, that must have been fun for all of you guys. But I was drafting and eating at the same time, so I didn't really get a chance to sort of look at all the draft as it was sort of going on. I was just sort of focused on my team. And then after draft is over, I didn't really look at it either. So, Tad, this is actually going to be my first time. Really diving into our draft board. And that's going to be the purpose of today's episode is we're going to look at the draft board, look at some maybe questionable picks. We'll see exactly how that all plays out. We'll look at some possible strategies that we had. And at the end of it, Tad, maybe we could pick who we think has the best shot, even if it's not one of us. But I think, Tad, we have to start with the analysis of our teams first. I think that's pretty much just a given here. So let's sort of show the board here. No, I think we decided on this one.
There we go. There we are.
That was a big discussion before we decided to record which view we were going to go with. So I think we decided on this one. So, Tad, I think let's find who's first on our board.
I believe it's me. No, it's you, actually. It's you.
Okay. I'm very curious as to why.
See, this is the risk of doing live draft reactions. So, all right. So I'll do this.
All right, so the Zoom function's not going to work out that well, Tad.
That's fair.
I think in order to see everybody's roster, we're going to have to keep it at regular size.
All right. So it was you. So your first pick was Travis Kelce at the 7th pick of the first round. How'd you feel about that?
I think, honestly, the way that the first draft, the first round was going, I kind of had to go in that direction because if you look at the board here, and for those of you wondering, we can share this board on our social media handle so you can sort of see it as you're going along with the draft. As you're listening to this episode or watching this episode, if you want to follow along that way, we can sort of do that. But yeah, the draft sort of went out with Justin Jefferson 1, Chase went 2nd, Christian McCaffrey 3rd, Barkley went 4th, Eckler went 5th, Tyreek Hill went 6th. And so lots of the high targets sort of left. Like, I mean, the premier guys that you probably want the first round were already gone. And so after that, I mean, I sort of had options where I was experimenting with some mock drafts to go with Nick Chubb. So that was an idea there. But I mean, Tad, we've talked about this on the podcast so many times. Travis Kelce is a glorified receiver, but he is the tight end 1 of pretty much fantasy leagues going forward. So I mean, I felt very comfortable taking him in the first round, even at number 7. So yeah, I felt very comfortable with that decision based on the options that were available to me. So yeah.
So real quick before we get into my first pick, I know this is like, our viewers are probably like, I cannot read any of those names. You can probably get a good feel of them through this. Is if it's orange/yellow, it's a tight end. So as you can see, is Murr took Travis Kelce right there, which is orange. Blue is a receiver. Green is a running back. Pink is a quarterback, and then I guess bronze. Bronze is the color we're going to go with. Bronze is a defense and purple is a kicker. So if we need to zoom out at any time and you're like, I can't read that name, you know the position at least, and we will explain to you what the name is. So for my first pick, this is a guy that you and I have been talking up all season. A guy that for me,
I got figured out. I think I got figured out.
All right, there we go.
We're
for me,
yeah, we're good.
Especially because I'm, my marble team. By the way, should we tell them how we picked our draft order?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
All right, you explain it. You were the mastermind of this, you evil bastard.
It was great. It was great. So, for those of you familiar with ESPN The Ocho, which was made famous,
such a sick man,
which was made famous by the movie Dodgeball, where they obviously showed that dodgeball games were on ESPN The Ocho.
This was
ESPN
a bold
decided to run with
strategy,
it.
Cotton.
The ESPN decided to run with it. So every year on August 8th, 8/8, they do on ESPN Classic, I believe. It might be on ESPN.
No, it's ESPN 2. It's ESPN 2.
ESPN 2. Okay, it was one of the main ESPN networks. They show just very random sports and very weird competitions. So it's like you see things like slippery stairs I've seen before. You've seen like
rock skipping. I watched rock skipping.
I've seen that before. They did like a break dancing competition. I remember seeing that last year. They did kickball. I saw that before. And one of the competitions was something called the Yells Marble Run, which is literally is this guy who created this sort of like marble competition, I guess I'd probably say it. The Marble Olympics, he likes to call it. And it's just like these fascinating competitions of just these marbles doing various things of like pushing blocks or just like doing a relay race or just doing a dirt rally. Like, I mean, there's so many interesting things that he does with these marbles. There's no advantage to any particular marble. They're all the same weight and all the same everything, but just like, that is how we decided the draft order. I gave everybody the option to choose whichever marble team they wanted. And depending on where they placed in a specific event that was not given ahead of time, that was the draft order. And so, yeah, Tad, unfortunately, your team of Mellow Yellow decided
I was about to say,
and they did not go through.
So this is a sentence I never thought I'd say. So Mellow Yellow fucked me. And they finished second to last. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to get none of the players I wanted. And I wanted Eckler. He went to Howard at number 5, I believe. Let's see. Number 5.
Yeah, Amanda Marie Howard, number 5.
Yep. Yeah. So I did not. I was totally ready to take it. I was actually, speaking of, our teams, I was actually very happy with my draft because I was ready to take Patrick Mahomes at number 9. But here's what happened. I think this is a huge mistake, is the person before me took Bijan Robinson before Nick Chubb, a proven commodity, which I think was a massive mistake. And look, people already know that I'm not that high on Bijan Robinson fantasy-wise, and maybe I'm being a little too harsh on him because he did look good during the preseason. But I'm sorry, even if Bijan Robinson does end up meeting expectations, I find it, barring injury, impossible that Bijan Robinson is going to finish higher than Nick Chubb, especially Nick Chubb, without Kareem Hunt stealing those targets away from him. So the fact that I was able to land Nick Chubb at number 9 absolutely thrilled me. Patrick Mahomes, 2 picks later, and that was, thank you, Chauncey. Thank you, buddy. Because he fell for the trap of going for Jalen Hurts. Here's the thing with Jalen Hurts. Yes, he's going to get you a lot of rushing touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes is going to give me twice as many passing touchdowns. So that was why I was very happy with my back-to-back selections of Chubb and Mahomes. I will admit, in those middle rounds, I was kind of on my toes. My plans started falling apart. I really didn't want Devontae Smith in the 3rd round. Najee Harris is well documented on this series that I do not like him as a fantasy option, but the running back options at that point were not great, so I kind of was forced into that position. George Kittle, I'm worried about. I think it was a fair risk to take, but whatever. DJ Moore, I was actually happy with, and I will let our listeners into the behind the scenes thing. Brandon, I need a receiver. I needed a second receiver to back up in case DJ Moore, Devontae Smith tend to be inconsistent, which I think they will. And so I was like, shoot. So I was thinking of like who is Mervin talking up, and Brandon Ayuk was right there. This is like a verbatim quote, verbatim text I sent to Mer. Brandon Ayuk better be good, you dick.
Accurate. Yeah, that's exactly what he texted me.
If he sucks, I am blaming you for this 100%.
All right.
Khalil Herbert, I'm pretty happy with. Basically, after those middle rounds, like I said, I was on my toes. A lot of things were going against me, but after that, I was pretty happy. The only other pick I'm really not that happy with, but I was kind of forced into, I needed just one more running back to add on to my roster. It was Antonio Gibson. I don't love that pick. And I saw actually today, it was funny. I was making sure all my lineups were set today because who knows if I'm going to be awake before noon tomorrow. But yeah, exactly. You got to prepare. But Antonio Gibson is projected for 11 points tomorrow. I don't understand that. Like, I feel like Brian, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just like totally not, in the talk of the Washington Commanders, but I don't know why Brian Robinson is being discounted this much. I really feel like he's going to be the primary back. So I don't love the Antonio Gibson pick, but Treylon Burks, Gabe Davis, Dalton Schultz, I was really happy getting Cortland Sutton in the second to last round. I was thrilled, or third to last round. I was thrilled with that pick. So overall, I'm happy with my team. It's not as deep as I like it to be. I took a lot of risks, but yeah, I'm okay with it.
I was actually surprised that you went with Treylon Burks and Gabe Davis, especially just, we've talked about Gabe Davis on this podcast before. They're just like,
again,
we're not a fan of his consistency. Yeah. So it's just like, I'm surprised that you decided to go with him.
But look at the receivers taken after him. Alan Lazard, Elijah Moore. And it was funny. I was actually giving Al crap for this because Al was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. Like, this is a great sleeper pick. So it was me, Al, Ryan. I'm trying to think who else was there. Nico was there. I'm missing a fifth person, I believe. Whoever I'm missing, I apologize. But Al was so excited for his OBJ pick, and I just decimated it. I was like, dude, that is a terrible pick. I'm like, you're falling for the trap, and he and I got in a bit of an argument. So like that was the whole thing with Gabe Davis was there was no other receiver better there, and that was kind of again that sums up my draft after the second round of like, yeah, there were a lot of picks there I didn't really want to make, but I had to make.
Interesting. So that actually sort of leads to a good transition point to sort of discussing my team here. So, I mean, I kind of went Travis Kelce and sort of fell into my lap, but you can see by my next three picks here, Tad, that I went receiver for 3 straight picks. And it's like, you look at that. And honestly, this is sort of what we sort of need to stress on this podcast too, is that as much as you mock draft and as much as you sort of have a strategy, once you actually get into the draft, you need to sort of abandon a lot of your strategy sometimes.
That reminds me of an Ocean's 11, I want to say, quote of like, you will plan out everything, but you need to plan for your plan going to shit.
I don't think that was in Ocean's 11. That might have been in some.
It's in one of the Oceans where like you have to plan for your plan going wrong.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to look it up.
You have to double check that one. But yeah, I don't remember that being in any of the Oceans, but I could be wrong there. But like I said, the whole point of me going 3 wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, Jalen Waddle, and then Calvin Ridley in 3 straight rounds is just I wasn't too happy with the running back selections when it got to my pick. And so I felt I needed to address the receiver position. And so this is actually what I texted Tad after the draft was over. I was like, I went very receiver heavy because that's just how the board played out to me. So, I mean, you look here that, I went with Diggs, I probably could have taken, at the time, you look at other receivers that are probably available. Other running backs. It's like maybe I could have taken Tony Pollard or Derrick Henry, but I felt a lot more comfortable with Stephon Diggs still being available. I was like, why not take a wide receiver 1 at that position at number 2? I could get some other running backs a little bit later. Unfortunately, Travis Etienne went 1 pick right before me. Ryan Dyrud sniped him before I could. So then instead, I decided to look at the other running backs out there. I probably could have gone maybe a Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones. Some of those guys were available there, but I felt once again, let me short my receivers. I got 2 stud receivers now in Jalen Waddle and Stephon Diggs at number 2. So then coming back to Calvin Ridley, Jahmyr Gibbs gets taken right before So once again, I probably would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs if he was available to me. But once again, he gets sniped. He gets taken by our colleague Justin Ergo, who writes for the USC Trojans and for the Chargers a little bit too. I wasn't a huge fan of Aaron Jones. I think just that whole situation in Green Bay is just a little bit too murky. So that's why I wasn't a fan of Aaron Jones. You look at some of the other receivers. I've already talked about so much about how I don't like Ramondre Stevenson. So he was available, but I let somebody else take him. So that wasn't going to happen. So like I said, you always have to draft with who you feel comfortable with too, because you don't want to draft players that you're not going to root for. Like, I mean, don't do that. You need to have a little bit of personal investment in guys that you like, because it's hard for you to draft a guy that just like, I didn't really want to draft this guy. I mean, no matter how good he's doing for you, you sort of have that sort of negative feeling of just like, I really didn't want this guy. I mean, just he'd have to be killing it for you to change your mind about a guy. But just you need to sort of have a little bit of personal, like, sort of fandom for a guy to be like, yes, I feel comfortable about this pick. And so the running backs that were available when I took those 3 picks at 2, 3, and 4, I just wasn't a huge fan of.
Yeah, I want to move on a little bit. Michael Thomas, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah, so we'll get to that. So then I take my first running back in round 5, Miles Sanders. I've already talked about how much I love Miles Sanders. Coming back around, I get Amari Cooper in the 6th. You know, I had to take my guy, Javonte Williams, with him being available.
That was fair. The second you made that pick, I'm like, I could imagine you drafting him. Like, you were so happy right now. I was like, God damn it.
I felt good about that pick for him to land there. So yeah, I get him at round 7. Follow it up with James Cook. I think he's going to have a great season in Buffalo. There are a lot of people that are worried about Damian Harris, but season? I think he's going to have a good season.
I'll tell you another name I'm worried about is Jonathan Taylor.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. That's why I didn't have to worry about him. We'll let somebody else worry about him, obviously. Who ended up drafting Jonathan Taylor? Let's see.
Jonathan Taylor, I believe, went in the 4th round.
I'm looking for it right here.
No, wait. Go back to the left. Right there, 7th round. No, more left.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Taken by Nico in the 7th round. So, yeah, we'll see exactly how that plays out. But you look at starting running backs. I mean, he's got Derrick Henry, and then he took DeAndre Swift. So, those are going to be a starting running back. So,
he bet big on Jonathan Taylor, which I told him in the chat was a bad bet.
Followed it up with Rashad Penny and Deion Jackson. So, yeah, his running back situation is going to be very interesting going forward. But, yeah, let's sort of finish up with my team here. So, Michael Thomas, like, the reason that I took Michael Thomas is that if he stays healthy, I think he can be the receiver that he once was. But like I said, I already took 3 stud receivers already. 4, actually, sorry, if you count Amari Cooper. So I don't need Michael Thomas to start for me. He's going to be on my bench. So if he ends up going off.
He's your bench sleeper? What I call the bench sleeper, where it's like, yeah.
I took a flyer on him. And so if he works out, that's fantastic. Now I can use him as trade bait, or I could use him in matchup-based option sort of thing too. So it's like, in case, you know, Jalen Waddle gets hurt, or in case, you know, Calvin Ridley just starts out of the gate slow, he's just not the same guy that we're seeing in training camp. It's like, I have an alternate option now. So it's like, once again, I went very wide receiver on my team.
Yeah,
so
I mean, but okay, so what's a bigger risk though? Is going for Michael Thomas or the guy who went right after him in Jordan Addison? I think Jordan Addison is the much safer bet then.
That is true, but he's also a rookie. And so it's like, I'm very much high on Jordan Addison, but it's just like, I've seen Michael Thomas do it before. Yes, the health is a big question mark, but like I said, I wasn't as concerned because I already have 4 stud receivers. So that's why I'm taking a flyer on a guy that can be a potential wide receiver 1 in New Orleans' offense versus a guy that we're hoping can be a solid wide receiver 2 to pair up with Justin Jefferson. So I still love Jordan Addison. I've been talking about him all offseason long as one of my favorite rookie receivers this entire fantasy leagues. But yeah, for me, it's like, I'd rather take that flyer on Michael Thomas because I think there's potential that he can sort of break out for sure. To look at the rest of my draft, you obviously got Brian Robinson. I know you said you felt bad about Antonio Gibson, but you had a chance to take Brian Robinson. So I'm surprised that you went with Antonio Gibson over Brian Robinson. So I snagged him up a little bit later, obviously, and I felt pretty good about it. So
Brian Robinson was still available?
He was, because if you look here,
those sons of bitches.
You took Antonio Gibson here at round 5.
You know what? You know who I blame you for? I blame you for this. I blame you absolutely for this. 45 seconds is not long enough to fully evaluate the draft board. Had I seen that, I would have taken Brian Robinson. God,
60 seconds for a pick.
Whatever. Well, I'm so sorry. I was involved with the rest of the league and involved in actually chatting and creating, well, I guess not content because we never published it, but still, I was distracted. This is collusion.
You didn't have to join that room.
You damn traitor.
You could have left temporarily and that was you betrayed me. You sneaky
whatever. Fine.
So I took Brian Robinson. I feel pretty comfortable about that. I like Washington's run game overall. So honestly, if you had taken Brian Robinson, I might have taken Antonio Gibson at that pick too. Like I'm just a huge fan of Washington's running game this year with Eric Bieniemy. I think he's really going to establish that. So here's the interesting thing, Tad. I took my quarterback all the way in round 11. So
that was weird. That we were talking about that actually in like the group chat. We were like, he doesn't have a quarterback yet, and this was your first quarterback. You trust him?
So I'll tell you here. So honestly, I was actually waiting for this guy that I pointed to. Aaron
That's
Rodgers.
a good pick. That's a good pick.
I was actually waiting to pick him on my next pick when I ended up taking Tua, unfortunately. But clearly you could see that Ryan had other plans. He decided to take Aaron Rodgers
for our listening audience. Yes.
Exactly. So Aaron Rodgers ended up going right after I took Brian Robinson. So I could have taken a quarterback right when I took Brian Robinson. But like I said, I wanted to shore up my roster a little bit more. I was like, I think Aaron Rodgers will last to be one more round. But clearly he didn't. So he ended up taking Aaron Rodgers right after me. I was like, that hurts. And then the other guy that I was considering over here, taken by our good friend Alfred, Deshaun Watson.
I have him in leagues. He's a good pick.
So I was a little bit
not a good person, but a good pick.
That was not talk about his personal life. Let's talk about him as a player. So I had options that I was going to go with either of those two guys. They ended up both being gone. I had no interest in Dak Prescott. So yeah, I was kind of left with taking either Tua Tagovailoa or Kirk Cousins. So I'm a huge fan of Kirk Cousins, but I think if everything could sort of go right with Tua, I'm seeing that he's sort of like he's learning how to fall. Tad, I don't know if you've seen videos about this.
Jiu-jitsu?
Exactly. Yeah. I think we saw the same video where it's like they're showing like the jiu-jitsu fall and they're seeing him fall. And so it's like I think he's learning how to sort of like properly shield himself instead of like totally rattling his head after the season that he had last year. So that sort of gave me a little bit of optimism. I think he can stay healthy the entire season. And if he does, he's an excellent addition because you look at that offense with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, all that could work out. So I think that's a good situation. That's why I went with Tua over Kirk Cousins. But then you looked at a couple picks later, I had to go with my boy. I had to draft a backup.
Least surprising pick of the draft.
I had to take a backup just in case Tua doesn't work out or he ends up not being healthy. I know Brock Purdy obviously had an injury history last year, obviously getting hurt in the championship game. It's looking like he's going to be fully fine, but we'll never know whether something could sort of surface as the season goes along. But I felt comfortable with him leading the charge there as a good streaming option in case Tua gets hurt. So that's why I had to back up Tua with a pick in Brock Purdy there. So I feel pretty good about that. And then, yeah, we talked about this defense, Ted. Miami's defense, I think they're going to be a sneaky good team to as far as rostering for fantasy purposes. They got Vic Fangio leading the defense. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. I think Jalen Phillips, the former draft pick out of the University of Miami, I think he's going to really emerge under Vic Fangio as well. So I think they're going to have a pretty good defense as well. But also, it's like you look, a lot of the great defense were already taken. So I kind of had few options there. I probably could have gone with the Saints and the Steelers. Steelers are pretty good defense. Saints, I think they had a terrible season last year, so that sort of worried me a little bit. So I went with a little bit more of that sleeper upside with Miami there. But overall, like I said, little wide receiver heavy, but I think if everything sort of works out the way that I'm hoping it does, I could possibly use some of those wide receivers as trade bait to sort of upgrade at the running back position. But some of the running backs I took as far as high upside as well. So hopefully they could pan out too. But if it doesn't, then yeah, I could be looking at the bottom half of the standings. We'll see how it all plays out.
Both of our teams are very high risk, high reward for sure. All right. So Amir, let's do our favorite pick of the draft, our least favorite pick of the draft, and then let's pick winner and loser.
Are you talking about team winner or loser? Like just who has a good team?
League winner or loser. Like end of the season. Winner or loser. Yeah, end of the season, who's going to be last, who has to do our punishment, and who has to, who gets the however much money we have. I don't even know.
It's a $20 buy-in by 10 people, so it's about $200 plus the trophy, though. Plus the trophy.
And Al, get ready to mail that trophy.
So I think I'll start with my least favorite pick. I'm sort of looking at it right here, and I can sort of understand why he went with that pick. But it's Cooper Kupp here, the second round. And I think this draft happened.
All right. I was about to say hindsight. You're cheating a bit with hindsight, but fair.
No, but also I'm talking about like when this draft happened. It happened on Sunday, and we still had reports that Cooper Kupp was having hamstring issues, and he'd have to see a specialist to sort of see. Like I think they actually surfaced after the long weekend, so I'm sort of looking a little bit there, but it's still a little bit of a risky pick, regardless of just how it was, because like he wasn't practicing as much. He was listed as day-to-day by Sean McVay, and then after the long weekend is when he went to see a specialist and possibly could be a lingering issue. Like it's sort of related to his back, I'm hearing, because he had back issues a couple seasons ago. So this could be stemming that could lead to him having hamstring issues. As of recording, the Los Angeles Rams have placed him on the IR, so he's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. So, I mean, just taking him in the second round, I understand this is our boss man, Ryan Dyrud. He works for LAFB Network. Maybe he just sort of saw it all, was just like, I believe that this guy can sort of find a way to come through. And we've talked about this so many times that it's just ridiculous the fact that he only played in 9 games last season, yet he still finished as a top 25 fantasy wide receiver in PPR league. So it's like, even if he doesn't play a full season, it's still like a possibly good pick. But I think just here, for me, is a little bit too risky to go there. He had the potential to take Devontae Adams, which went to pick later. You look at some other picks there, like Amon-Ra St. Brown had a fantastic game against Cincinnati. I think he's going to have a great season for sure. Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, they're absolutely going to tear it up. So surprised that he didn't go in that direction. So yeah, for me, that's probably my least favorite pick. And I'll pass it to you here as I sort of at just a little peek behind the curtain. This is sort of like going no notes whatsoever.
We're going complete. We're improvising all of this.
We're looking at the board for the first time here. So yeah, a lot of this.
No, you're looking at the board for the first time. The problem is this board is so goddamn big that I keep forgetting, like losing my picks. But anyway,
well, you can pull it up on your own screen.
I have it on my own screen. What do you think I've been doing while you're talking? Do you think I listened to a word of what you just said? No,
I don't know. Maybe you're looking at it on the screen that we have shared here.
Very rarely do I do it anyways, but now I'm actually doing it for a reason. But anyway, the Cooper Kupp pick, especially now with today's breaking news that he is on the IR for the first 4 weeks. I agree.
Yeah.
Ryan's going to struggle. But I am actually 2 picks below, 1 to the left. Okay. So, Amy Howard took Lamar Jackson in the 4th round. Normally, I would say not bad value. Remember, do me a favor, scroll to the left real quick. How do you take Lamar Jackson before you take Justin Herbert? Everyone was laughing at me last season for saying that Lamar Jackson will fall out of the top 10. Tad, what are you talking about? Tad, you're an idiot. Tad, why are you our fantasy guy? And guess what fucking happened? Lamar Jackson fell out of the top 10. Why? Not because he's not talented enough. I am never said Lamar Jackson is not a good quarterback. I will never say that because he is a very talented dual threat quarterback, but has the potential to be the best dual threat quarterback in NFL history. The problem is he's falling trap to the risks that all dual threat quarterbacks follow, which is injury. He is not consistent enough to be a dependable quarterback one. So if you are going to draft him, you have got to make sure that you have a good backup plan. Now, Amy, to her credit, did get a good backup plan with Dak Prescott. I like him as a QB2. I know some people are going to be like, oh, no, he blows and blah, blah, blah. Again, maybe I'm like too gross in the Dallas culture because they really do not like him down here. But bottom line being is I love Dak Prescott as a QB2. So she found a good backup plan. But you wouldn't need a good backup plan had you taken Justin Herbert, who is going in to one of the most loaded, the second, and we talked about this on the last episode, in my opinion, the second most loaded offense in the freaking league. Like, I don't understand the thought process behind that. I kind of get it. I'm like, oh, he gets more rushing touchdowns. But again, fine. He'll win you a week or 2, maybe even 3 or 4. But then he's going to miss 3 or 4 weeks on top of that. And you're going to be struggling through those games. You're going to have to make other adjustments, like a trade with me through that. So I don't understand that pick. I think that was a real wasted opportunity there because I really do like her team. She put together a very interesting team, but that quarterback position, and look, this is why, like, it's one of those things I keep pounding into our listeners' heads is like, you gotta emphasize the quarterback. For some reason, they're being devalued in fantasy, and I really, really believe it should be going the opposite direction.
Yeah, no, that makes a good point. You make a good point there, especially with that. Maybe she felt worried that she took Austin Eckler in the first round, and then she didn't want to handicap herself with a quarterback in the next round to have the same bye weeks. Then she'd be out with 2 studs out of her league week for, that. But I think one thing also people need to understand is like the bye week is, it's good to be aware of, but you shouldn't base
it's not the killer. If you drop a week, that's okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially in redraft leagues, it's like 1 week is not going to kill you. It's multiple weeks is where it's going to kill
Yeah,
you, obviously.
exactly.
So yeah, I think it's important to know when a player's bye week is, but just don't let that handicap you. Go for some stacks. We talked about that before in our fantasy rapid fire segment, right? Where it's like, who are our favorite stacks? There's a reason we brought that up, because if you have a good stack, that means you have 2 players that are really going to help you out on your fantasy team. So yeah, just maybe that was her reasoning there. Maybe she likes the rushing ability. Maybe she thinks Lamar Jackson is going to stay healthy the entire season. But exactly as I said, she backed it up with a solid backup option in Dak Prescott in case he does get hurt. So, yeah, we'll see how it all plays out.
I will say this honorable mention for worst pick is scroll all the way to the bottom for me, because we gave him a ton of crap for this in the chat, and I just need to do it again.
Okay.
Al, what are you doing? You're taking Deuce Vaughn.
Oh.
He was good.
Pick.
He was good. And I was just like, yeah, he was good in college. But and look, I think he's one of those players that is going to be very useful for the team on the field.
Right.
But in terms of fantasy production, I see almost zero value there. Like it's gonna be one of those things where it's gonna be like Darren Sproles in his early years, where you can tell, like, oh, this dude, once he goes to another team, or once this team actually starts making him the premier receiving back, absolutely. But for now, his rookie year, I see Deuce Vaughn as like, I don't even see him as a waiver option. So no, we were giving him plenty of crap, and Al was doing the Al thing. And this is why we all love Al. Is right or wrong, he'll stick to his guns, and by God, he was sticking with them.
Hey, I mean,
I love that, man. I love that. He was only the defending champion. I am so paying attention to this league this year for the sole purpose of he has bugged the shit out of me for the last 8 months, and I am not doing that again.
All right, we'll see.
How about this for hot take? I don't even care if I win this league. I just need to beat Al.
All right. I think for me, it's just surprising that he went with Deuce Vaughn in a 10-person league. Like, if this is a 12-person league, I could justify that pick a little bit more. But yeah, in a 10-person league, I think your waiver wire is a little bit deeper as far as your options available, as far as what's available to you in that last round. So that's a little bit surprising. But yeah, we'll see exactly how it all plays out for sure. So, Tad, what is your favorite pick, you think, then?
That's a good question. Okay, so I'll find another favorite pick while we talk about this one, because I know we already touched on this a bit, but your Javonte Williams pick was so good. Because you look at the running backs taken before him. Jonathan Taylor, I'm not confident in his I'm not going to say he's a bust. It's just there's so many unknowns there. That risk in the 7th round isn't bad. So I'm not saying Nico made a mistake, but that was the riskiest move of the entire draft. But I also told him that could pay off. And the same thing happened in my other league where we have an auction draft, and our player got Jonathan Taylor, I want to say, for $10.
Okay.
Which, again, that could be great. But if Jonathan Taylor ends up not playing the entire season, which is a very real possibility, that could have been a very valuable $10 wasted. So it's just high risk, very high reward. Cam Akers, I love him. He's one of my favorite sleepers. That's fair. But then Al went with Isaiah Pacheco, which is fine. I understood that pick because that does have some, possibility reward there. Alvin Kamara could pay off for Amy, but again, I kind of broke this down a couple episodes ago where even if Alvin Kamara is healthy, within the Saints offense, I think his time has passed, where he's very inconsistent. He'll have those weeks where he'll go off for you, but he's not consistent enough for me to trust him anymore. You got an unquestioned number 1 starter who, by all accounts, will be ready very, very soon, if not by tomorrow. So I think they'll ease him in tomorrow. I don't think he'll do very well for you tomorrow.
Yeah.
But as by week 3 or 4, I think you just got like a running back 2. And what round is this? The 7th round. I mean, that is fantastic value. So honestly, buddy, and that's why I'm struggling to find a pick better than that. And we'll keep seeing the praises. I won't spend too long on this since I've already talked about it, but really, I got like to my own horn here. I got Patrick Mahomes as the second quarterback. He's the best quarterback in the league, man. Like, how did I pull that off? Like, I'm very happy with that pick. So I think you and I, we did take some, I think overall, and we spent 30 minutes, and I'm going to try and basically bring it down to 2 sentences. We like our starters. Our benches are high risk, high reward.
Exactly. And actually, I'm going to follow it up with, you liking one of my picks. So I'm liking one of your picks. I know you kind of already brought him up, but Courtland Sutton
I
in
was
the 13th round.
Ryan was like, I hope they don't take this dude. And since it's Ryan who's a Broncos fan, I'm like, I know exactly who you're going for. And I told him, because obviously he wouldn't have an option. I just told him, like, Ryan, I'm taking Courtland Sutton. And he's just like, come on.
Exactly like he laid out, where it's like Javonte Williams taking him in the 7th round to be a potential RB2 for your roster, possibly fringe RB1, depending on how Sean Payton wants to use him here. But there's no question that Courtland Sutton is the wide receiver 1, because, I mean, we see the issues with Jerry Jeudy. He's probably going to go. I don't know if he's going to go on the IR. That has not been stated yet, but
I don't think he is. I mean, from all the reports I've been reading, his recovery has been going fairly well.
But it still could be a lingering issue. So it's if that's going to be an issue, then it's like you can't really trust him as well. I think he ended up going a couple rounds earlier. I think I remember seeing him somewhere earlier here. I'm going to see if I could find him real fast.
This is like, find Waldo. I'm not going to help you here.
The minefield. There he is. Okay, so he was taken by Ryan, actually, in the 9th round here.
Minefield. That is a dated reference, my friend.
Minesweeper is the dated reference.
Minesweeper.
Yeah, Minesweeper is the game where you had to click, remember, and then it gave you the numbers.
If you got the bomb, Minesweeper. Okay, I gotcha.
But yeah, so Ryan Dyrud actually ended up taking Jerry Jeudy in the 9th round. So, I mean, it's not bad to take him in the 9th round, but just I think the lingering issues with whether he's going to be healthy all season long, whether it's going to nag him all season long, I mean, that's just something that need to be worried about. Whereas, like, Courtland Sutton, we're hearing nothing about him as far as injury concerns, and he is pretty much the unquestioned wide receiver 1. And so for you to get the wide receiver 1 all the way at the end of the draft, like, I mean, that's just sensational, because very much it's similar to my Michael Thomas pick, where it's like, if this pans out for you, if Sean Payton can sort of revitalize this Broncos offense, and we see the Russell Wilson of old, and he's able to air it out to Courtland Sutton, that's just fantasy gold for you. You found gold in the 13th round. Like, that's just fantastic to me.
I agree with you. Other than Patrick Mahomes, that was probably the happiest I was. Because, like, I know I spoke earlier about, like, I didn't think I'd land Nick Chubb. I knew there was a possibility there. I did not think there was a possibility I could get Sutton in the 3rd to last round. So that was the happiest I was, other than getting Mahomes.
Yeah, so definitely that was a solid pick for sure. I'm looking at some of these other picks here down at the bottom.
I like Rashad Bateman. Who is that? Two Beard? Who is that? Or
Z-Beard. So that is the co-host of LA Podfidential with our good friend Chauncey Talese. So that's Thaddeus Klein.
Oh, all right.
He ended up taking Rashad Bateman.
That's good, because me and Thaddeus are in another league, and his team is not good. I'm not just saying that because we're playing each other tomorrow. But Rashad Bateman has high, like, at that risk, it's not even like the high risk doesn't even matter. Like, risk is just eliminated once you get in the final 3 rounds. So I actually like that Rashad Bateman, because, and that's why I told Al not to take OBJ, is like, there are just so many better younger players in that Ravens receiving room. And Rashad Bateman is at the top of that list. So I think Rashad Bateman is probably my favorite Ravens receiver going into next season. So getting him in the 2nd to last round, I love that pick.
Yeah, that's a good pick for sure. Yeah, I think everything else sort of plays out the way that I sort of see. So, I mean, I think everything else is pretty good. The only other pick that I want to highlight is Greg Dulcich in the 14th round. I mean, first of all, it's an interesting strategy to take 3 tight ends by Nico. So, I mean, I don't know how his
that's gonna be interesting.
I just want to see if it's really 3 or whether he took one early. No, it's really 3. So he ended up taking Dalton Kincaid in the 11th. He took Tyler Higbee in the 12th, and then he took Greg Dulcich.
I do like the Deion Jackson pick. That actually could end up paying, not for the entire season, but like you get off to a hot start with Deion Jackson. Like, that's not a terrible pick for last round.
I think he had to back up his Jonathan Taylor pick, right? So it's like, okay, he likes what he sees there, so I think that's exactly what pick there's there. So Kincaid, I've already talked about rookie tight end, so it's like, I don't know how much he's going to emerge this season. Hopefully, if he does, I mean, that's what Buffalo's hoping. That's why we're sort of seeing the inconsistencies from Gabe Davis, so that's why they drafted Dalton Kincaid, shore up that passing offense. Higbee, I like, especially now with the news that Cooper Kupp is going to go on the IR. Tyler Higbee automatically becomes the best passing option in this passing offense for Matthew Stafford. He's already relied on him a lot last season, so I think that's going to carry over into the first 4 weeks at least. That's a good immediate option. But long term, we talked about this with the trade of Albert Okwuegbunam to the Philadelphia Eagles. This just opens the door for Greg Dulcich. I think he's going to be a fantastic play the entire season long. So I think that's another good pick here. So, Tad, let's sort of wrap this up here and just sort of like going through all these rosters. Who do you think is going to win it all?
All right, let's go rapid fire here. Win it all, the guy who had the 2nd overall pick. And I thought he made one of the biggest mistakes of the draft to kick things off. Ryan Anderson.
Okay. And this is
big
he is a
skinny.
fantasy rookie. He has never played
Big
fantasy
skinny.
football before. Maybe he's trying to capitalize on the luck that Alfred had last year, saying that he is not a fantasy football guy, and he somehow won it all last year. So, all right, Tad is picking Ryan Anderson. All
So
right.
I'll tell you why.
Respect.
So he took Jamar Chase second overall. And at the time, I was like, that was a huge mistake. I would have taken Chris McCaffrey. He took Tony Pollard, who is one of my favorite fantasy running backs going into the season. Then he took Joe Burrow, now the highest paid player in the NFL, which feels very weird to say. Ramondre Stevenson, this is where I was like, okay, now he's going to start falling apart. But, he took Keenan Allen, which is a great pick. Drake London, who I think will be solid, not great. Evan Ingram, who's one of my favorite, fantasy tight ends heading into this year for a long time listeners. This is where I think you really made the difference in his team. James Conner. That is a player I've not been very high on, but you look at all the running backs that have gone after him, he got the last true running back one.
I'd probably say that.
And so that was a fantastic insurance policy for Ramondre Stevenson. And for Ramondre pays off. Now all of a sudden he's got a fairly solid option at flex. And he gets Christian Kirk, who I think his production will drop down, but still fairly good.
Still be a solid producer.
Yep. Exactly. Charbonnet, I thought that was a bad pick. Brandon Cooks, I think was fantastic. I really think Brandon Cooks is going to be a very dependable receiver. Not good, but dependable fantasy receiver. You can count on him for 10 points a game. I really do believe that. Richardson, get the fuck out of here, man. What are you doing? The Cowboys defense. Usually I am not a fan of taking a defense before the first two, the last two rounds. But if this is the Cowboys in that weak division, yes, Giants fans, I'm calling your division weak. Shut up. I think that was an excellent pick. Algier, I've already talked that this is why I'm not a big believer in Bijan Robinson. I think Algier and Cordero are going to get a fair amount of touches. So he's a solid bench option should the worst case scenario happens. And Jason Myers, it's a kicker. Who cares? They're not people.
Yeah, interesting that he was able to get the Cowboys here in the 13th round because the only other defense that went was the Niners defense all the way in round 8.
That was almost my pick for worst pick. That was way too early.
Well, also Alfred went defense very early last year too, and like I said, it paid off for him.
He played on defense. Of course, he's going to go for the defense.
So yeah, I think if it pans out for him this year, the Niners just have a sensational season, which I'm obviously hoping for as well. That this pick at number 8 is justifiable, but just for him to get the Cowboys defense all the way at 13, that's fantastic as well. As far as my favorite team, I kind of need to look around here as far as some good players. Like,
do you want me to give you my loser while you look?
Sure, you can go ahead and give the listeners and the viewers your loser of this. So,
I'm risking my job here, which kind of gives away the answer.
Okay.
Right, Ryan Darude. I'm sorry, buddy. You did not draft well. So Tyreek Hill, I love that pick. Cooper Kupp. I mean, sorry, man. Like, come on. What were you doing? Like Amir said, we already knew there was some risk there. You made the gamble. You lost. Etienne, I really like Etienne. But then you go into his next couple picks. Aaron Jones, I don't like at all. I think he's going to drop off fairly badly. Dameon Pierce, very talented young back, but in a struggling young offense, I'm not sure about his fantasy capabilities. Alexander Madison, I think he'll be good but inconsistent, where he'll land you a lot of, good weeks where he'll go off for 15, 20 points, but then he's going to get you like 7 or 8 for the next 3. And so I think that was a very risky pick. Michael Pittman, same deal as Madison. He's going to go off some weeks, but with Anthony Richardson as his quarterback, I'm not sure. Pat Freiermuth is the definition of inconsistent. Like, that dude is entirely touchdown dependent. Jerry Jeudy, good pick. I like that. Aaron Rodgers, I like that. Zay Flowers, notice how I left him out when I said Rashad Bateman is my favorite Ravens receiver. I think Zay Flowers is good. I think he'll be fine, but I don't understand why so many people are in love with him. Also goes to the next pick. What is with people's love of Jamal Williams? One guy in my other league is starting Jamal Williams as his running back too.
I think once again, it's like you look at the stats that he had last year, so people are just thinking that this is who he is now. But with the suspension of Alvin Kamara for 3 games, maybe they're hoping that he's going to do enough in those 3 games that he's going to be able to garner enough touches and rushing attempts going forward too. Maybe he'll vulture some touchdowns like Ezekiel Elliott in New England. So maybe that's what they're hoping again. So I think that's why there's a lot of people that are in love with the guy.
Okay. So I will say this though, Ryan, this is where you can save yourself. Use Jared Goff as a trade piece. because he looked damn good on Thursday. So you use him as trade piece. Whoever's quarterback goes down tomorrow, because somebody's quarterback is going to go down tomorrow. Not that I'm hoping for it, but it's just the reality of football. That is where you can redeem this roster. And the Titans defense, what are you doing, man? How did I get the Steelers after you took the Titans defense? So, Ryan, I love my job. I love this podcast. Please don't fire me. You're going to have to do that punishment, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Honestly, like, I mean, looking at these teams, I mean,
if you pick me, we are done as podcast co-hosts.
Honestly, I think Brian Anderson has a pretty solid team. I like all the picks that you laid out. Like, I mean, it's hard to argue there, but probably for my worst team, I probably lean towards probably Nico. Like, I mean, the strategy that he had, I think there's a lot of good players that I like. I mean, Justin Jefferson, obviously solid. I think we're a little bit skeptical of Derrick Henry possibly sustaining the entire season being solid.
All right, real quick, let's talk Derrick Henry, because I was actually shocked he fell that far to the last pick of the second round. So I think that Derrick Henry, this was too late for him. And like, it's too late for him when I'm complimenting a goddamn Titans player. But like, I still think he's fantasy relevant. Like, it's like this is almost the point of being like a borderline running back 2. So that
I
actually
think he's not going to be fantasy relevant, but I think just him of being a RB1, which is where he drafted him being an RB1 for him. That's where I sort of see like, okay, that took a little bit of a hit, but he's still a solid pick there. Garrett Wilson, I'm a huge fan of with Aaron Rodgers. That's a good pick. Justin Herbert, we've both gushed about him, how much we love him too. This is where I start to see a little bit of the drop off. So I'm not a huge fan of DK Metcalf because I'm not a huge fan of Geno Smith. So I think there's going to see some drop off there as far as his production level.
He got good insurance from McLaurin.
McLaurin's dealing with a turf toe, though, so I don't know whether he's going to be able to sustain
is he
that.
Really? He's on 2 of my teams.
I swear, yeah. Terry McLaurin's dealing with turf toe, so I think he's going to be okay for tomorrow, but that could be something that lingers the entire season. So I'm higher on Jahan Dotson, who I think went a little bit later in the draft to another team, but just, so that worries me a little bit. We already talked about Jonathan Taylor. DeAndre Swift, I know there's a lot of Eagles fans that are optimistic based on what they saw in preseason.
I don't trust any of those Philly running backs.
And so, but that's the thing you need to worry about too. That whole committee approach with him and Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. So I mean, just like, I don't know who's going to be the main guy in a given week. So that's what worries me there. Deontay Johnson is a great piece, but he needs to find the end zone more. So that still worries me a little bit. Oh, okay. He actually backed it up. He took Jahan Dotson. So he's the guy who took Jahan Dotson. So he's able to ensure himself.
So he doubled down twice. He quadrupled down. He did a little
Jonathan
bit. So
Taylor, he took a lot of picks, and then he backed up those picks with picks too. So it's like that's where the strategy is a little bit interesting for sure. It has to pan out for him. We already talked about him taking 3 tight ends. I don't think I would ever take 3 tight ends personally in a league. So I mean, I could understand taking 1, but taking 3, that's a little interesting there. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of rookie tight ends. Higbee with the Cup news, I think that's a little bit of a better pick, obviously there. I'm not a huge fan of Rashad Penny at all. We talked about it on the podcast. I think he's just he's got that injury prone label on him now. I think that's just who he's going to be now. Dulcich, I'm a huge fan of. And then, Deion Jackson at the very end, though. But I think one of the things, though, I will applaud Nico for is that depending on the platform that you draft in, you don't always have to fill every position. So if you play in a platform like Sleeper, for instance, which is where we played, he didn't have to draft a kicker. He didn't have to draft a defense, so he didn't. So instead, he made sure he got players that he liked, and he's able to fill out his roster that way. And now, before tomorrow, the Sunday slate of games, he can make some adjustments and pick up the defenses or the kickers that he wants instead of having to draft one and possibly missing out on a guy that possibly could have slipped him. But he's like, no, I have to take a defense. So that's one thing I will applaud him for. But just overall, just his roster buildup, I think, like I said, just the first half is great. I think he's got a lot of potential there, but then just the backups to the backups with his insurance policies, that's what worries me. So
another compliment, or to help out Nico a bit, is exactly like what you said. Is his benches, that's like the highest of high risk, but. Because he doubled down, like I said, he doubled down twice. All right, so he's going to drop Deion Jackson at some point. Deion Jackson is not going to be on his roster at the end of the year. One of those Washington receivers, either McLaurin or Dotson, probably will not be on his roster at the end of the year. Maybe they both are, but very rarely do I see teams hold on to 2 players on the same team. Which means that Nico needs to be the top waiver wire player. If he makes sneaky good waiver wire pickups, all of a sudden his team catapults up. That's exactly like what you said. When you go top heavy and you make a lot of good picks later on, but you make a lot of risky picks, a lot of good picks earlier on, but you make a lot of riskier picks later on, then you need to be confident in your waiver wire abilities. So if he can nail that part, I actually see him being a sneaky good sleeper for winning the league. But if he, swings it, happens to everybody. If he swings and misses on the waiver wire, all of a sudden he is in danger of really tanking. So, it'll be interesting to watch. And luckily, he has a very good podcast to listen to for waiver wire advice.
100%. And Tad, I know you didn't want me to pick your team, but honestly, I think you have one of my favorite rosters outside of mine.
Whoa! So, the rare Amur compliment. I will take it. That's the first one in like 2 months.
But I mean, we both talked about how much we're fans of Nick Chubb. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, big QB1. I mean, getting him in the second round, that's fantastic. I mean, we kind of already went through your roster already, or at the top of the episode. But I mean, just like your roster makeup.
Let's do it again. I like this. Keep going.
Devontae Smith, I think he's definitely going to emerge.
I'm worried about AJ Brown. I worry about his consistency is the one thing kind of scaring me.
I think Jalen Hurts is going to throw more, which is going to lead to Devontae Smith having a good season.
I hope you're right.
I know you don't like Najee Harris, but I think he's going to be a silent killer. I think he's going to
I hope you're right. I'm wrong, but I don't like him.
George Kittle is able to build a solid rapport with Brock Purdy, so I think that's going to sustain over the course of an entire season out instead of 6 games, so I got optimism there. DJ Moore and that Bears offense, I'm a huge fan of for sure. Brandon Ayuk, just every single season, he has gotten out of.
He better be good, you dick.
He's gotten out of Kyle Shanahan's doghouse, and now he's finally become that guy that was drafted in the first round out of Arizona State. So I think he's going to definitely have a solid season this year. Khalil Herbert, I'm a huge fan of. I think he's going to take the lead touches in the Chicago backfield. Antonio Gibson, I've already talked about it before. I think he may emerge as that guy to sort of take that lead, sort of fill that Jarrett McKinnon role that we saw last year with Kansas City, but now he's doing that here in Washington under Eric Bieniemy, so I like him. Traylon Burks and Gabe Davis, those are the only 2 picks that I may fault you on a little bit.
I'm weirdly high on Traylon Burks because I've drafted him now in 2.
I'm higher on Traylon Burks than Gabe Davis, but I think both picks are just a little bit risky for me. So but once again, they're bench guys, so it's like if they work out, they work out for you. Once again, the whole high upside, low risk sort of thing. So we'll see about that. Dalton Schultz, I'm a huge fan. A lot of people are letting him go, but he's probably going to be the main guy in Houston as far as the passing offense is concerned, outside of Robert Woods. So very much like that. Courtland Sutton, I already talked about. This is probably one of my favorite picks of the entire draft. Younghoe Koo, solid kicker for Atlanta.
I'm low key. I was actually very happy to get Koo as my kicker.
A lot of options, obviously, for him, depending on how that offense goes. And then, Steelers defense for you to get him second to last. Like you said,
that was crazy.
With Ryan taking the Titans defense, and so that was pretty.
So, all right. So, for those of you who are having trouble reading this, the Titans defense went, okay, fine, whatever Ryan's thinking there. Then the Dolphins defense went to you, which was a good pick. I'm a big believer in that, even without Jalen Ramsey for a bit. How long is he out for?
He was only out the preseason. He's going to be healthy by week 1.
Oh, shit. That was a really good pick then. The Dolphins pick was a good pick. Saints. I don't understand that pick. Like, why do people keep thinking the Saints defense is going to be... They haven't been good since they were paid to kill players.
Oh, God.
That was a good joke. But anyway, so, the Steelers second to last, I was extremely thrilled with because that defense is going to be so dirty.
100%. So, honestly, like I said, outside of my roster, Ted, I'd probably say I like your roster the most. But Ryan Anderson did draft a pretty solid roster, especially for a first-timer, so that was pretty good too. So, but honestly, I think it's a pretty open competition. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner as far as, in my eyes, as far as like, this is the guy that's definitely, or woman. No, we do have a woman in our league, Amanda Marie Howard.
Good job.
So, I don't think there's a clear-cut winner as like, this is the person that's going to win it for me, at least.
I'll give you Traylon Burks and Gabe Davis for Brock Purdy.
No.
Damn it.
Patrick Mahomes. Why do you need a backup quarterback anyway?
Just because in case Mahomes goes down. Did you see that offensive line?
Yeah, we'll see exactly how that all plays out. But all right.
It depends. Can they keep playing Jawan Taylor 5 yards off the line? Because if they do that, he's going to be okay.
Seriously, they're able to get away with that one. So that was surprising. So that will sort of end our episode here today. As mentioned, we'll sort of share this draft on our social media handles so you can sort of look through it as you want to re-listen, or if you just want to see the draft and you can sort of give us your opinion. Tad, why don't you throw up a poll as well, who people will think will win our LAFB Network Fantasy Football League. I think we did it last year as well. We got some good interaction there. So make sure you do that. So, I mean, guys, we're stoked. I mean, I think stoked is even an understatement for just the football season starting, fantasy football season starting. We'll be getting into bets next week as well, DFS action. I mean, just like we talked about, we're sort of going to fall into a routine now with our waiver wire episodes early in the week, start sits later in the week, our betting episodes later in the week, possibly. We'll see about that, but definitely got you covered on social media for sure. So, I mean, make sure, guys, you see the ticker down below. Make sure you follow us on all our social media handles. You got me at Under the Side 23. You got Tad Desai 94. Got the show handle at the Desai Guys, and of course on Instagram at the Desai Guys as well. So that's where you'll get all of our social media graphics when it comes to start sits and waiver wire picks and betting picks, and like you name it, it'll be on our social media handles. So in case you can't catch an episode for whatever reason, we got you covered on the social media handles as long as you're following them. That's the biggest thing that you need to be doing. And in case you can have the time, make sure you subscribe to your podcast, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You listen right on the LAFB Network website as well. Hit that subscribe button. Always be up to date with our podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you're always up to date with our YouTube videos as well. And of course, make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network. They got you covered, especially with kickoff tomorrow. They got you covered with some pregame analysis. They'll definitely get you covered with some postgame analysis when it comes to the Chargers and the Rams. And of course, it is football Saturday in college football, so they got you covered on the college level as well with the UCLA Bruins and the USC Trojans. So they definitely got you covered with pre and postgame analysis for both of those teams as well. So make sure you're supporting all of them. And I mean, guys, we keep saying this every single podcast, and we're not going to stop saying it. We're here to win you your football leagues, your fantasy football leagues. So make sure you're interacting with us. You're listening to the podcast. You're watching the videos. You're doing anything and everything that you can to make sure you're getting all the information that we can provide to you guys. And to everybody who's already doing that, we can't thank you enough.
And like Amir said, we are hitting the ground running tomorrow as a recording, and we are dropping this episode, like an hour or two after recording. So hopefully, tomorrow is NFL Kickoff. That's a good, disclaimer to put on that. But tomorrow is most of the games, and we have, is it 1 or 2 Monday night games?
It's only one game on Monday night.
Really? So they dropped the whole 2 Monday night thing?
I think the doubleheader is actually next week, if I remember correctly. I think so, but I could be wrong.
Interesting choice. I'd love to know the thought process behind that. But anyway, so, apparently we only have 1 Monday night game. So by Monday night, we will know, hey, these are guys you got to go for. These are guys that you need to target on the waiver wire, and we will let you know on Monday night, Tuesday morning. But either way, we will let you know in ahead of time who you should go for. So we got our waiver wire episodes are back. We got our stardom sims are back. We are currently debating about the betting episodes versus articles. We will let you know where the decision lies there. So either way, we are going to make you money. We are going to win you some leagues. So keep watching us, keep following us. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Please have a very happy NFL Kickoff Sunday. And as always, stay safe, everyone.